Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell says he's going to protect Seattle from Donald Trump. And Donald Trump says, I don't even know who you are. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
If Donald Trump cured cancer tomorrow, Democrats would try to figure out new ways to get cancer. They would go sit out in the sun to try and get skin cancer. They would take up smoking to try and get lung cancer. They would rub themselves up against cancer people thinking that is how you get cancer. They would do that because no matter what he does, they are opposed to it. Watching them absolutely lose their minds over the Big Beautiful Ballroom has been something to behold. Yesterday, as soon as I saw the picture on social media of the East Wing of the White House being torn down by an excavator, I said, just watch, the left is going to go bonkers crazy. Let's remember that this part of the White House wasn't built till the 1940s anyway, because presidents regularly update the White House. Where the press room is right now, that used to be a swimming pool for FDR. You got rid of the presidential swimming pool, Richard Nixon. How dare you? So, do you remember the movie Olympus Has Fallen? Come on, we all enjoyed it, right? Save the White House from a bunch of Korean terrorists. Yeah, it's fun, it's great, it's fantastic. Save it from the North Koreans. Make sure they're not going to blow up all the missile silos. One man, die hard in the White House, the good version, not like White House Down, which sucked. This is the good version, Olympus Has Fallen. Do you remember when Gerard Butler is saving the kid, saving the presidential firstborn son, and he takes him into the walls, and the bad guy goes, did Truman gut the White House in 1944 or 45? You remember when he says that? The bad guy from Fast and Furious, the bad guy from the James Bond movie, Die Another Day. You remember that? Okay, great movie. Loved it. Anybody who's seen that movie, Truman gutted the White House down to its studs. He's destroying democracy. No kings. You want a little history, some of the renovations that have been done to the White House? 1902, President Theodore Roosevelt built the West Wing. It didn't exist. Now we have a whole TV show based on it. Now everybody thinks the whole White House is just office space. Before that, the office was with the mansion. Okay. 1909, President William Howard Taft added the first Oval Office during a West Wing expansion. Wait, it wasn't built with the Oval Office? 1933, FDR added a second floor to the West Wing. In 1934, he relocated the Oval Office to its current spot, completed the East Wing, and built an indoor swimming pool. 1948, President Harry Truman began completely gutting and rebuilding the White House interior, preserving only the exterior walls. See, the bad guy was wrong. It wasn't 44 or 45, it was 48. In 1970, President Richard Nixon converted FDR's pool into a press briefing room and added a bowling alley in the basement. In 2009, President Barack Obama upgraded the tennis court into a full Exactly. Basketball court. That is just a little tiny, tiny bit of some of the stuff that has happened. I love that the White House put out pictures of every single one of these renovations, but my favorite is Truman gutting the entire inside of the building. The entire thing. And the left is losing it because they see an excavator tearing into the White House. And people are mourning the East Wing. Oh, the East Wing, I'll never set foot in it again. Oh, the East Wing of the White House. Okay, can we go back in time for a minute here? I am old enough to remember when a whole bunch of you lunatics were protesting outside trying to kill Trump for an entire summer. Do you remember when the White House had to go dark and they put Trump we don't even know where because those lunatics were rioting at the White House? Shows how much you care about this building, doesn't it? Or how about this? How about practical ideas for a second? You ever see the TV show Comedians Getting Coffee in Cars and Cars Getting Coffee, whatever it is, with Jerry Seinfeld? You ever see the one he did with Barack Obama? That one?
Obama!
It's very entertaining because Obama in that episode is actually kind of entertaining. And what's funny about it is they're discussing how Obama is basically a prisoner of the White House. He can't go anywhere because you need the whole motorcade and you need the whole Secret Service. You're basically trapped in there. Other world leaders have the same issue. King of England, he's always in the palace or out at the farm. That's basically where that dude lives. That is where he is. I'm sure he looks for any excuse to go anywhere because he's going stir crazy, just like the Queen used to. So the president is basically stuck in the White House. You know the amount of state dinners they have? You know the amount of formal functions they have in D.C.? There are approved sites that the Secret Service has. Yes, we know how to work with this facility. We know how to work for that facility. But do you realize, here, for you lefties, that motorcade, how much gas it eats up anytime it goes anywhere. So now you're telling me you can have formal events at the White House? I love how everybody thinks all these state dinners are actually at the White House. They're not. They're at nearby hotels. Which one should we go to? Oh, the Trump International. Let's go there. Actually, one of the certified sites, by the way. And it was before he was president. So you look at the carbon emissions you are saving from not taking the motorcade there. But let's level up a little bit more. When you do an event, you need to rent the location. You need to pay for the location. You need to bring in the security. You need to bring in the metal detectors. You need to get a caterer. You need to do all these things off-site. You have any idea how much it costs to throw a formal dinner of that magnitude? Between DJs, and that, I just mean DJs not even for the music. I mean just for the microphones and the sound equipment to work okay for the speeches. The screens you need to set up, the hotel ballroom rental fees, the corking fees, everything else that goes into it. What are you talking, $100,000 minimum for each of these formal occasions? Minimum. I'm sure it's more when you have to factor in the security and how much police you have to take with you. Now imagine you're doing it at the White House. How much does that cut down on costs? You're going to be saving money in the long run, especially given the fact that Donald Trump and benefactors are paying for this themselves. Of all the presidents I just listed, of all the additions they did to the White House, did a single one of them pay for it themselves? No, of course not. But no matter what the guy does, the left loses it. Completely bonkers, crazy, loses it. And what do they say? Oh, now we love America. You guys are the ones burning American flags. Don't tell me he's destroying a symbol of America when 5 minutes ago, you guys were burning American flags in the street. You guys are chanting, death to America. You guys are talking about how America is so racist and so bad and so terrible. You should be thrilled they're tearing down a symbol of America. Guys, really, this is stupid. This is the biggest faux controversy I've ever seen. But you know what it leads us to? How the left has no ideas at all. All they can do is say, orange man bad, orange man bad, orange man bad. Because they literally have nothing else. Why? Is the shutdown a stalemate? Because the left can't give in to anything because Chuck Schumer is worried he's going to get primaried by AOC. And every other mainstream moderate Democrat, or at least who used to be mainstream and moderate Democrats, are worried about getting primaried by the far left, especially when they see Mamdani rising in New York. AOC's not after Chuck Schumer's job. AOC is after Donald Trump's job. She's after J.D. Vance's job. Why do you think she's touring around the country with Bernie Sanders taking every single interview request? And they're not talking about the shutdown. That's why. But Democrats who fully embrace the left can now see the grave they've dug for themselves politically, where if they give in any small measure, the far left progressives are going to say you're not far left enough for us. Newsflash, by the way. AOC's not far left enough for some progressives, because you can never be left enough for the far left, because they are always moving the goalposts. They always are. And this is what they're going to keep doing. Because now, what does the left embrace? Full-scale murder. Yeah, we don't like a public official. We want to kill them. The FBI is apparently investigating so many threats that were made during the mostly peaceful No Kings protests. How can you call them mostly peaceful? As we discussed yesterday, when they're supporting Hamas, when they're talking about killing elected officials, when they're talking about killing political appointees. Oh, yeah, King 5 and Seattle Times and everybody else cropped all that out. They don't want to show you that at the Associated Press. They want to make sure all that isn't seen in the pictures, even though the Associated Press, it looks like you got a Hamas rally right there in front of the Capitol. The violent symbolism, the violent threats, the people talking about reenacting the assassination of Charlie Kirk, that's what we saw yesterday. You want to know how bad this has gotten? A man has been arrested for threatening to kill Seth Dillon. Do you know who Seth Dillon is? He's the editor of the Babylon Bee. The Babylon Bee, a parody site. Florida arrested this guy, and he wanted to kill Seth Dillon. He wanted to kill Josh Hammer, who's the editor of Newsweek. It's absolutely insane, the list this guy had of who he wanted to kill. Interestingly enough, this guy was radicalized by the far right. But when you look at the accounts he followed, Candace Owens, AIPAC Tracker, Israel Exposed. Oh, you mean the guys who are the horseshoe theory of the far left and the far right? You're looking at full-scale violence they're calling for. Anybody who disagrees with them is a Nazi. And if you tell people that anybody they disagree with is a Nazi or Adolf Hitler, they think they are justified in killing them. My son is studying in Israel for a year. They take them on a heritage trip to Poland to see the concentration camps and to see the killing fields and to see everything that happened there. And I'm getting pictures from his school all the time, as parents do these days, updating us on the trip. And so on one screen on my computer, I'm looking at pictures of my kid or on my cell phone. And on the other one, I'm seeing the left calling everybody a Nazi. Is anybody on the right rounding up people and sending them to their death in gas chambers? No. Is anybody here taking away rights of citizens like Second Amendment? Oh, wait a minute. Who's taking away Second Amendment rights? That's the people on the left, right? So if you spend the whole time telling everybody that anybody who's against them is a Nazi, they're going to start believing it. All those aging hippies from Grand Tifa that were out there over the weekend, they truly believe that violence is acceptable against people you disagree with according to every single political poll. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Vice President J.D. Vance is in Israel today trying to keep the peace deal together. He made a great point when he was giving his remarks.
There is this weird attitude I've sensed in the American media, in the Western media, where there's almost this desire to root for failure, that every time something bad happens, that every time that there's an act of violence, there's this inclination to say, oh, this is the end of the ceasefire, this is the end of the peace plan. It's not the end. It is, in fact, exactly how this is going to have to happen when you have people who hate each other, who have been fighting against each other for a very long time. We are doing very well. We are in a very good place. We're going to have to keep working on it, but I think we have the team to do exactly that. So with all thanks to our partners, both in Israel, but all across the Gulf Arab states, Indonesia, the Turks, we are doing an amazing thing here, and I'm particularly proud of the American troops working at the command center who are coordinating this effort and making it possible.
Can we go back to the beginning of that clip for a second?
There is this weird attitude I've sensed in the American media, in the Western media, where there's almost this desire to root for failure.
That's exactly what we're seeing right now. This desire to root for failure. They don't want things to be successful. Look, I know that bad news sells. I know that blood, guts, and violence sells. I know that if it bleeds, it leads. But you know what else is great? Solving peace in the Middle East. That's how everybody should have covered this. Instead, they went to their political corners. How is this good for us? How is this bad for Trump? How can we undermine it? Like you need any more help. You're already trying to make a deal with Hamas, and you need the American media and the left trying to undermine that? They're out there marching for a ceasefire. There is a ceasefire, an unstable one right now. I've never seen so many people so upset that the genocide, and I'm using air quotes, is over. This is what you guys have been asking for 2 years. It's done. It's stopped. And now it's almost like they're cheering for it to start again. The lunatics on the far right and the far left are both constantly trying to make it seem as if everything is falling apart, like they're rooting against this, like they're rooting against the president. I'm going to tell you something, guys. I don't see much of a difference between the far left and the far right anymore. They're using the same talking points, and they want failure. At least the left is courageous enough to criticize the president, whereas people on our side are too worried about losing access to Donald Trump to actually say his name. It's crazy, absolutely crazy that they are both chanting for him to fail. It's nuts. And you can never be far left enough or far right enough for some people. And that's what we're seeing. This insane ideology where they just want the clicks, they just want the failure because they read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, one of the sequels where it talks about a ship that travels on bad news, because they know that bad news is the thing that travels fastest in the galaxy. That's what they thrive on. I would love to talk about good news here. I would love to talk about a different outcome of the game last night. I really, really would. It's crazy how people are rooting for failure. And when you root for failure, and let this be a lesson to everybody on the right as well, people think you have no ideas of your own. Thomas Massey, always voting no on everything. Well, then give us a solution. You and Rand Paul, by the way, and I happen to like Rand Paul and dislike Tom Massey. You got a solution? Give us a solution to fix this. The people on the left, Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad. This thing about the Big Beautiful Ballroom is so symbolic of what's wrong with both sides, for that matter. The extremes of both sides. Nothing is ever good enough because if you actually solve the problems, you have nothing to run on. You have nothing you stand out on. And the left right now wants the war to continue in Gaza because then they can chant about it and get all their activists happy. They want the shutdown to continue. And they want to say Trump is destroying democracy and destroying the White House and tearing everything down. It's nuts. This really is a mental disorder. And why are they doing it? Because they have no ideas of their own. What do we see happening in Seattle? It's the exact same thing. People like Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell. He has no idea how to fix anything. If the guy had an original idea in his head, it would die of loneliness. So what's he saying? I'm going to fight Trump better than Katie Wilson is going to fight Trump.
Well, we read the panel of the Ninth Circuit's ruling down in Portland, and so we studied that decision to see the implications here for in Seattle. And so we, of course, are encouraging them in Portland to appeal it to the full Ninth Circuit. And in following the law, which we think is really bad policy, and so we're hopeful an appeal will result in a better ruling, common sense would dictate that Trump is overreaching. It's not only mean-spirited, but we believe inconsistent with the values here and inconsistent with the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. So we will fight this tyrannical approach, this federal overreach. We are prepared and we are vocal in our stance on protecting the values here in Seattle against Trump.
What values are protecting in Seattle? What values? The value to shoot up on any street corner and die on a sidewalk? What values? Where you can march in the streets for Hamas, where you can demean anybody who disagrees with you? I saw the video of what they were chanting during the No Kings protest. What values exactly? Federal overreach, you're mad that he's enforcing the law, which you guys never did. But Bruce Harrell has no ideas of his own. So all he's saying is Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad, and hoping that he can appeal to a few lefties who he's not far left enough for them, because the truth is Katie Wilson isn't far left enough for them either. They want the most radical person they can find. And Katie Wilson's going to be challenged by the left also one day if she gets elected. Just watch. This is what you do when you have no ideas of your own. You attack, attack, attack. The Big Beautiful Ballroom and the faux outrage about it is just a symbol of what's actually going on. The left has no ideas. They don't know what to do, so they're attacking everything that moves. It's insane. Speaking of insane, by the way, more Seattle stuff. I wish we had better news on the game last night, but if you want to vent, you call us at 206-421-5757. We'll talk about the game when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. I know everybody's sad about what happened last night, and we are going to be here for you. You're looking for somebody to blame. You want to blame the coaches. You want to blame the umpires. You want to blame everybody you possibly can. But I know that Bruce Harrell's responsible for at least one loss because he's a bad luck charm. We can all admit that, right? When he embraced the humpy insanity the other day and tried to use it as a campaign tactic. Well, you know who you can blame for last night's loss? Give a listen.
Game 7, it's big. Mariners are going to pull this out for sure, and we're going on to our first World Series. So get ready to celebrate, everybody. Go Mariners.
You don't say that. You don't do that, Bob Ferguson. That's the ultimate jinx. You don't do that.
Turd Ferguson.
Exactly. And we know he knows better because all he could talk about is his girls playing softball. So he knows well, okay, whatever. He knows something about the sport. But seriously, you don't do that. So at least 2 of the Mariners' losses, one's Bruce Harrell, one's Turd Ferguson. Easy. Now I'm going to tell you. Last night, Mike and I went to the Seahawks game. And the T-Mobile Park was also open because people were there watching the Mariners game. So there were a lot of people in the Soto district, or rather in the Dough district, right there in the
just
stadium.
the dough part.
Just the dough, exactly. There was a lot of dough, lots of pretzels. So right there in the district, Mike and I had a little bet yesterday on the show. As we were walking down to the stadium, because the media has been so overhyping the street vendor thing, they're cracking down on the street vendors. How many were we actually going to see? I will tell you a little tale as Mike and I are going to the stadium. So we took the Seattle monorail and we took it over to the light rail. So we came from the studio, we came from Seattle Center, we come down, we make it to Westlake, we hop on the train at Westlake, get off at Pioneer Square, pop right up into Pioneer Square, come walking down looking for our street meat, looking for where we're going to see all the street meat and all the people.
Licking our proverbial chops.
Exactly.
Just looking for all this undocumented meat.
Not that we're going to eat any of it. Maybe Mike would have, but
Not this time.
Not this time. But looking for where it was. So
I have forsaken the forbidden meat.
None of the street meat. So we're walking, and we had a bet. Mike said we were going to see 7 without going over. Without going over that. Right, exactly. I said 10. And we go and we saw 3. One guy literally had a red, portable, Weber-ish knockoff grill kind of thing. We saw 3 on the way to the stadium. And we were kind of disappointed. Where is everybody? Where is everything? We go into the game. Seahawks played a great game. Lots of fun to watch. I will say, though, there was this moment when everybody found out the Mariners lost. And the place was hopping. Night games are such energy, and it felt like the energy just got sucked out of the stadium. Everybody felt sad. Everybody felt sad. Then there was some pick-me-up as the Seahawks. There was a moment there where the Seahawks weren't doing so well either, where we were worried about the game, and then they just kept going, and it brought some of the energy back. But it was heartbreaking. It was really heartbreaking. I know how much everybody wanted this. I want to see the Mariners make the World Series, and I'm not even a Mariners fan. I want to see that happen last night. But Mike and I are looking for some entertainment on the way out. Not that kind of entertainment, you weirdos. So we're leaving the stadium, and our bet is still going, and we got to walk back to the train station. So as we're walking out, I'm not seeing any of the street meat. And Mike goes, wait a minute. Caught something out of the corner of his eye. And here's what Mike saw.
All right, so when we got here, there was 3. Now there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, I think they're together. That's not 2.
That's not 2, that's 1. And then look at all this over here. Look at all this. Wait, unlicensed merch! Unlicensed merch!
No, we said 4. All right, 12, 13, 14. Well, he's got Seattle dogs, though. You got the smiley faces, Seattle.
So then Mike goes and talks to the street vendor who's selling the unlicensed street merch. But 14 we saw on the way out. And by the way, Mike doesn't lose the bet because Mike saw them and I didn't, and he was a good friend and goes, hang on, we're going to go find some gold over here. And there we went. So Seattle cracking down on the illegal street meat is just as effective as them cracking down on the homeless because they're everywhere, literally everywhere. And here's my thing. if DHS wants to make some arrests. Mike, what do you think the likelihood was where those people were legal workers here in the U.S.? What do you think, Mike?
I think I think if ICE rolled up, they'd need to bring a bigger truck. Just put it that way.
Exactly right. So that's the street vendor scene. It's the way it looks. It's the way it looks outside every game when you leave. It's all the same stuff that's always there. I wonder if this was a psyop where they say we're cracking down, trying to discourage people from going. I also wonder if it's like the old ranchers with the RVs where somebody buys them at auction and then rents them out to everybody, because a lot of those carts look kind of similar. I wonder if there's a conglomerate of the street meat. But I'll say something else for my Mariners friends. As a Mets fan, I don't normally do that. I know all about loss. Let me tell you, I know about losing games in bad situations. And I feel for you. I really, really do. And Noah Syndergaard, when the Mets lost the 2015 World Series, said baseball has a way of ripping your heart out, putting it back in, and getting it ready to go for the next season. Absolutely right. There's a story that I have when the Mets lost the 2000 World Series to the Yankees at Shea Stadium on our turf. I'm watching the Yankees celebrate on our turf. I'm walking to my car, which is parked really far away. And as I'm walking, and the area around that part of Queens is, well, there's a reason we call it Flushing. What do you think about Flushing, New York? I think it's a great idea. It's really bad. It's all chop shops. Thank you. Undeserved, but thank you. And I think I'm going to die anytime I park in this area, and I'm hoping my car is there every time I come back. So I'm walking through this area, and as I'm walking, there is a ginormous man walking towards me. And I think this is it. This is how I die. And he opens his arms up, and I'm thinking, oh, my God, what is he going to do? And this ginormous man envelops me in a hug and starts crying on my shoulder. We'll get him next time, man. We'll get him next time. We will. There's always next season, my friends. And if you want to talk about the Mariners' loss, you want to vent about it, you give us a call at 206-421-5757, or you text us at 206-421-5757, because I got to tell you guys, I was really pulling for you last night. I know it hurts. There is next season. And look at all the good stuff you have to rebuild with this time. And I'm not saying that in jest like I normally do. Really seriously, guys, I feel for you. And enjoy it because you didn't expect this season. And that's what you should be happy about. When we come back, my friends, what the Democrats didn't expect is for the polling to remain on the side of Republicans in the shutdown. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. The Democrats have a problem. And the problem is they were counting on this No Kings protest to move the needle. And according to the polls, nothing has changed. When you see all those people marching on the streets, are any of them independents? Are any of them Republicans? To win an election, you have to win hearts and minds. You have to change people's minds so they vote for you. Is anybody now going to say, well, I saw you out there calling everybody a Nazi and waving a Hamas flag, so I'm going to join your cause? That's why you lost in 2024. But you guys do you. That's fine. What do the Democrats want? The Democrats want to make sure they don't get primaried by far left Democrats, and they want to win the House and the Senate in 2026. So what does the generic congressional ballot polling say? You're talking about a 1 or 2 point difference between Republicans and Democrats, and normally a president will lose control of the chambers that he has power of in the first couple of years of a term, which is what happened to Trump last time. That's not looking like it's going to happen right now. So the Democrats don't know what to do. They have no ideas of their own. What's worse yet is there's tons of audio clips out there showing what they used to say about government shutdowns. Here's Chuck Schumer during the last one.
It's the methodology of what they're doing, which is basically saying, I have a baseball bat. I'm going to hit you over the head unless you give it in my way.
I want to play some
it's not even hitting me over the head. It's hitting all those people who need their paychecks to pay their families.
So you used to think shutdowns were a bad thing. Now you think shutdowns are a good thing. Guys, make up your minds. Make up your minds. You're all public figures. You should know that these clips are going to be played, but what you're counting on is MSNBC and CNN not running these clips. You think the people who watch Fox are never going to vote for you. You just are trying to keep your liberal base intact. What exactly do the Democrats want? President Trump said exactly what it was.
Well, we want to have great health care, so we'll do whatever we can do to have great health care. But the Democrats want to destroy all health care because they want to give $1.5 trillion of this money, and they want additional money to go to people that came into our country illegally. Many of them are from prisons and mental institutions, and we're not going to destroy our health care for the Democrats.
Do you guys remember what the border was like under the Democrats? I know voters have a short memory, but not the people in the Ari Hoffman Show audience, because you guys are really, really smart. In KVI Nation, you guys remember the floods, the human floods coming across the border. Tens of thousands of people a day coming across the border. People dying, drowning, children dying in the Rio Grande, being brought over by drug smugglers and drug runners and human traffickers. Every single day, millions of people were brought into this country by the Democrats. And now they want to be able to take care of all of them. They think that's the only way they're going to win an election again because their ideas suck. Their ideas are terrible. And their ideas get people killed, like bringing in tons of illegal aliens. Listen to what the president was pushing today, that he wants Congress to approve so he can sign.
The one I'm going to ask you to vote for, and it's in the House now, and I hear it's doing well in the House, James. It's Kate's Law. A young lady named Kate Steinle, I remember it so well, probably 8 or 10 years ago now in San Francisco. She was holding hands with her father on the San Francisco pier, looking out into the water. This beautiful, everything was beautiful, but the person wasn't beautiful that did this. And this was an illegal alien that came into our country 5 times, was thrown out 4 or 5 times, I don't even know, but a lot, and came back and shot her through the head. And she went down and she looked at her father, Daddy, Daddy, something happened, and she immediately passed away in his arm. And, I mean, you can imagine, it was so sad, such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful person. Father was destroyed, virtually destroyed. And they passed they wanted to pass what they call Kate's Law, and it's now again in Congress, and I hear we're going to get it passed in Congress, and when it gets up to the Senate, I hope you guys can pass it. And basically, very simply, it says that if you're an illegal alien and you come in and you get thrown out, if you come back and get caught, you have to spend 10 years in jail. Very simple. Very simple. If they would have had that, Kate Steinle would be alive today. That was a big event at the time. If you remember Bill O'Reilly, for those of you that like Bill, I think I like Bill, but he was the one, he devoted his life to that law, trying to get it passed. I think it's time that we pass it.
I have a confession. I'm embarrassed I forgot about Kate. I forgot about it. It's been so long. And we've had so many Laken Rileys and so many Kates since then. I forgot about one of the original cases that made national headlines. How many more of these cases do we need to happen because of failed policies? How many more people need to die because of failed policies? This is what happens when you put politics over people's safety. People actually die. That's at what's stake here. And also, the marketing for this, for the Democrats, saying, well, we're fighting to keep the government closed so we can give illegal aliens health care. Good luck with that one, guys. Doesn't seem to be working on anybody except for your far, far, far left base. And speaking of far left, a local outlet closed comments on its website articles because it doesn't want any dissent. So much for freedom of speech. We'll tell you what's going on and which outlet it is when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Mike, I think in all the time you and I have been doing this, I don't remember ever using a report from the Bellingham Metro News. I definitely don't normally cite Cascadia Daily News, which is, they're all part of this one conglomerate thing. Mike, have you ever heard me mention either of these outlets before? Ever? Anytime?
How about no?
Exactly. Now, somebody sent me this, and I started laughing. So, Bellingham Metro News posted this to their Facebook page. Cascadia Daily News suspends Facebook comments after claiming their social media policy has been violated. Hang on a second. If it's been violated, why don't you just ban the people who violated it? Cascadia Daily News has suspended all public comments on its Facebook page, citing what management described as a pattern of toxic and misleading comments that repeatedly violated the outlet's social media policy. The decision, according to CDN, is an editorial published on their website, which was made to protect civil discussion and focus staff time on journalism rather than constant moderation. Time out. Can we go through this? How many comments do you think the Bellingham Metro News gets? How many? For those of you who don't know, Bellingham, like 5 people live there. Why? How many comments does the Bellingham Metro News get that you're worried about what people are saying? Here's something else. You know what I do most of the time? I ignore crazy people. I literally had a guy today blaming me for what happened with Israel and the USS Liberty in the 1960s. It's crazy. People write crazy stuff on the internet, especially in the comments, by the way. Notes to people who are fans of the Ari Hoffman Show, who want me to comment on something on Facebook, tag me. Then I will actually see it in the comments. I don't always get to check and see every single comment. If you want me to weigh in or DM me, then I will get back to you, because I know a lot of you are looking for voters' recommendations and that kind of stuff. I'm not saying I'm such a big deal, but it's kind of hard to keep up with all the social media platforms. And I want to get back to you. I want to engage with you. But the Bellingham Metro News, how many people read the Bellingham Metro News? CDN executive editor and former Seattle Times journalist. Oh, there. Former Seattle. Do you think they're in my little black book of the right-wing media conspiracy? Ron Judd said on Facebook, threads have become increasingly filled with misinformation, name-calling, and off-topic arguments, even on non-political stories. They explain that moderating these exchanges has turned into a 24/7 job, often taking time away from reporting. You guys do know how social media works also, don't you? Is that the more comments you get, the more people see your page. Maybe this is why your outlets ain't doing so well these days. You want the engagement. You want the people saying crazy stuff on your page. Just putting it out there for a second. In place of Facebook commenting, CDN is now encouraging readers to share feedback through verified letters to the editor or guest columns on their website. The publication says this method allows for thoughtful discussion while holding contributors accountable for their words. How many people do you think are actually going to do that? Congratulations, guys. Your analytics are about to go through the floor. But you just don't want to have the discussion? Or is it you're writing such terrible articles you can't deal with the fact that people have issues with them? Is it you're writing things that aren't found in the actual news? Is it you're doing slanted, biased journalism and you don't like what people are writing? I don't know what sparked this. I do know what sparked this. I really don't know what article it is because nobody reads the Bellingham Metro News. But the fact that you guys claim to be all about free speech and are now saying we're taking away the comment section so you can't do free speech anymore? Yeah. Tell me again what, that whole double standards, if the left didn't have them, they wouldn't have any at all. Tell me about that. Lots more to discuss when the show comes back, my friends. The Washington budget is in serious, serious trouble. And we're only now beginning to find out how bad it might actually get. And it's not the fault of Donald Trump and Republicans because there are no Republicans in charge here in Washington. We'll give you the details on Fergie's latest disaster when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Karine Jean-Pierre is back, my friends. And looks like she's copying Kamala Harris and blaming everybody but herself for what went wrong with the election. But before we get to any of that, my friends, Bob Ferguson is now saying that the budget gap, which they said was only going to be $1 billion, could be a lot worse now.
And I'll keep this short because we're really here for the bridge, but there's not just talk. That's a reality. There's a budget shortfall. The revenue forecast that we received in June and more recently last month show a shortfall of close to $2 billion for the next legislative session. We have one more revenue forecast in December that I'll get before I propose my supplemental budget. In addition to those challenges, we have from the federal government dramatic cuts to Medicaid. That's about $3 billion a year, to SNAP benefits and others. So there's huge challenges for us as a state. And so, look, I'm mindful of all those factors and to make sure that we are balancing our budget, which we're required to do. And so you'll see a budget that's thoughtful in that way, that balances our budget. We're going to see significant reductions in our budget. There's no other way to balance that budget than doing that. But I don't want to give everything away before we propose the budget, but that gets proposed in about 2 months.
And will there be an opportunity to work with Republicans who might have some ideas on how to close that gap?
I can assure you I hear on a regular basis from our Republican friends in the state legislature on a regular basis. During the last legislative session, for example, we held regular meetings, for example, with Senator Braun and Representative Stokesbury throughout the legislative session. Those are common. Senator Braun has my cell number. He calls me from time to time when he's got thoughts about the budget. So we're in regular communication on both sides of the aisle. Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you to Carlene Johnson from the Center Square for that report. So you talk to the Republicans regularly, but you ignore everything they say. We've had Travis Couture, who is in charge of running the budget for the Republicans, on this show many, many times. And he discussed with us all the different ideas they proposed to the Democrats. What is the only idea the Democrats like? Taxes. They're like that. What is he, a lion he's a lion, right? Because Robin Hood's a fox. King John, Prince John in the Robin Hood show. Taxes, taxes, throwing the coins up in the air. Taxes. That's Bob Ferguson. That is Turd Ferguson. So wait a second. I want to make sure I got this right. Let's go back to right after the election. Turd Ferguson is governor-elect. Jay Inslee is about to be former governor. And all of a sudden, wouldn't you know, oh no, there's a budget deficit. Oh no, it's $10 billion. Wait, what? How did you not know about this? Oh, it's not 10 billion, it's 12 billion. No, it's 14 billion. No, it's 15. No, it's $16 billion. And then Turd Ferguson comes in and he gives that whole speech for his inaugural. Yeah, we can't get there just by cutting, just by raising taxes. So we have to cut. And yeah, he raised taxes. The largest tax increase in state history. $9.5 billion in new taxes. In 2019, Republicans warned this was coming. We had a budget surplus. And they said, if you keep spending like this, like drunken Democrats, if you keep doing this, we are going to be in serious financial trouble. And that's exactly what happened. We joke, oh, are they spending it on more self-service stations, like for Jack City Rain, art galleries where you can go service yourself in the company of others? Are they spending it on laser hair removal for trans inmates? You know what I did? I filed a public disclosure request with the Department of Corrections. I asked for how much money they've spent on trans surgeries. Haven't gotten anything back yet. I filed that a long, long time ago. How long do you think it's going to be till I'm ever going to see that? Never. Never going to send that one over to me. They're going to wait years, if they can, before sending that over to me. They do not. They do not want to have serious discussions about the budget unless it involves raising taxes. They raise taxes on everything. Unfortunately, you have a problem. Eventually, you run out of other people's money. So, to close the $18 billion budget deficit, you raised $9.5 billion in taxes and then cut a whole bunch of stuff. You know, the Republican budget didn't have anywhere near as drastic these cuts. Democrats could have cut non-essential things, like some of the things we just mentioned, but instead, they cut essential services. Does any of this have anything to do with Donald Trump? Anything at all? Nothing. In addition to that, Bob Ferguson passed and signed into law new taxes on big businesses. So if Amazon leaves and Microsoft leaves and Boeing leaves and all these companies keep leaving, and it's not going to happen overnight, they're going to do it through attrition, you'll be left with nothing. And then you'll start taxing us more and more and more. And meanwhile, you guys are saying you need more money for health care for illegal aliens. You need more services for illegal aliens. You want to make sure that people are getting trans surgeries in prisons. This is the kind of out-of-control spending. So now what you're telling me is your math was so bad for your biannual budget, because the budget goes for 2 years, that you have to do a supplemental budget where you find ways to make cuts or raise revenue, a.k.a. taxes. And the last time I checked, wasn't it $1 billion? So on top of the $18 billion, now it's actually 19 because you guys can't do math. Oh, wait, no, it's actually 20 now? How much higher is this going to go? The truth is, this is not about deficits. This is about out-of-control spending. They cannot control themselves. Now, the Center Square has this article. For years, the Washington State Department of Transportation has warned that system is on a glide path for failure due to chronic underfunding by the state legislature for maintenance and preservation. Time out. This year, they literally passed another tax on gas in order to cover this shortfall. And now you guys are saying that wasn't enough. Are you on to the game yet? Are you on to how this is rigged yet? No matter what, it will never be enough. He's just Prince John going, taxes, taxes, taxes. That's what this is. All they want is more of your money because they think they know how to spend it better than you. Now, officials say they're reaching the end of the road in terms of maintaining that system and require an additional $8 billion over the next decade. Quote, we feel we've done all we can on preservation side of things to squeeze out what we can do to keep the system moving. That's kind of where we're at, says Director of Capital Program Development and Management, Troy Suing. He told the Washington State Transportation Commission at its Wednesday meeting. Something that concerns many of us right now with this level of funding we have. We are really just trying to keep the roadways open. We're doing the bare minimum to keep the roadways at a safe level. What are you guys spending this stupid stuff on? Really, what are you spending it on? You spending the money on clearing the homeless off the freeways? What are you spending this money on? Because I don't see our roadways reflective of you spending any money whatsoever. They're in terrible, horrible, horrible shape. Recent reports have noted that Washington state highways are among the worst in the nation, despite having one of the highest gas taxes that is used to fund WashDOT's budget. According to the WashDOT presentation, more than 7,900 lane miles of state highway were due or overdue for preservation in 2024, when only 670 miles was actually paved. WashDOT anticipates an additional 9,000 more lanes of miles will be in need of preservation within the next decade. According to WashDOT, spending on maintenance and preservation of the state's transportation infrastructure has actually gone down since 2001 when adjusted for inflation. Among WashDOT systems are 3,427 bridges, with 342 of them 80 years or older. So, at this point, who's mismanaging all these projects? This is an absolute disaster that you guys brought on yourselves. And of course, the only solution for it is not to look at your wasteful spending, but instead to look at how we can raise taxes on everybody else. Did Donald Trump have anything to do with that, with neglecting our roadways for how many years? Whenever they want money, they always say, oh, it's going to go to roads and bridges, infrastructure, infrastructure, infrastructure. How many times were we told this tax is going to infrastructure and that tax is going to infrastructure? And did any of them actually go to infrastructure? No. You guys going to blame Donald Trump for that one? Oh, also on top of that, you don't have enough workers in WashDOT anyway because you fired a whole bunch of them with the vax mandates. So, we gotta fix it that way, guys? Really, at this point, I think I could put a 5-year-old in charge of WashDOT, and he would go, how do I make sure that the trains keep going on the tracks? Fix this. I think a little kid with a fake train set that simulated the real deal could do a better job than the head of WashDOT. I really, truly believe that. I really do. Any little kid who has his own train set can figure this out, but not the head of WashDOT, not Bob Ferguson. And plus, how many years did Inslee screw up with these green projects? How much of the money was spent on green projects that never accomplished anything at all? Then I saw this article from Como News. As the federal government shutdown persists, a growing number of federal workers in Washington state are turning to unemployment benefits. As of October 15th, 1,184 federal employees, about 79 per day, had applied for benefits, according to the Employment Security Department. Although federal claims are a fraction of total unemployment claims, they are more complex and time-consuming in the process. Man, would it be nice if we had more money in the unemployment account? Too bad we're about to use it to pay striking workers to go on strike like school districts. ESD is asking federal workers furloughed or laid off to gather as much information as possible about their wages. Now, this is something that I didn't like where Como News went with this. Because here's the headline of the article. Washington unemployment claims rise among government shutdown, mass layoffs at private companies. Are you trying to say that these claims are going up because of the government shutdown? Because you just said they're a fraction of the amount that's coming in. Maybe it's because of the mass layoffs at private companies. Why are the private companies laying people off? Because they are getting out of Dodge. And they know they are going to get taxed up the wazoo here in Washington. So what they are doing is they are laying off the workers here and hiring them somewhere else, like on the East Coast, in red states. We have been watching this happen from Microsoft, from Amazon, from all these different companies. And they're leaving because of what the Democrats have done. And the Democrats just think the solution is, oh, not enough taxes? Let's tax them more. That'll keep them here. Soon there's going to be toll booths. Leaving the state, moving the state, give us half your money. Then we'll let you leave. California was trying to figure out ways to do that because so many people were leaving. That is what they are going to do to companies. There will be an exit tax. Just watch. That's what they're going to try and do. Yep, Jeff Bezos leaves the state, and now they don't know how to pay their bills. You think he's going to be the last one? Lots more people are doing the same things. And then I saw this editorial from the Seattle Times, and I want to throw my computer through a wall. Here's the headline. You ready for this one? Because you're going to be as mad as I was. Hastily passed tax will haunt Washington lawmakers. 9 days. That's how long Democratic lawmakers in Olympia took to pass a sweeping expansion of sales taxes, estimated to impact more than 90,000 businesses in Washington. Hurrying to approve a multi-pronged tax on many services was a reckless way to craft foundational economic policy. The tax, expected to raise almost $2.7 billion over the next 4 years, takes effect Wednesday. This was back in September. Already, fallout from its rushed passage has caused widespread confusion among the companies expected to pay it and has generated a challenge in court over whether it's legal. Most notably, the tax, part of the largest tax package ever approved by the legislature, will reverberate throughout the state's economy, ultimately putting a dent in the wallets of all Washingtonians. The new taxes cover a broad range of business services, including information technology, security, temporary staffing, and more. Ruling Democrats bemoaned a runaway budget this past session, one they said required a bevy of tax increases, but this obfuscated the truth. State tax revenues had been increasing, just not enough to cover all their spending priorities. So they solved this political quandary with taxes whose deep economic impacts many lawmakers failed to consider. Stop. Let's stop right there. Who wrote this? The Seattle Times editorial board. Now, some of you may say, Ari, see? The editorial board is actually conservative, and I call BS. You want to know why? Because they endorsed many of the people who did this in their endorsements that came out last week. They endorsed many of the Democrats that supported this insanity. They're also the editorial board. They assign the articles to journalists. And you know what I didn't see the Seattle Times do at all during the legislative session? Cover that these taxes were actually coming and that they were actually being considered. Excuse me. These things were on the way, and the Seattle Times editorial board was silent. We were covering it. Brandy Cruz were covering it. That was basically it. I don't know. Oh, the Center Square was covering it. That was almost everybody who was covering these taxes. And yet, the Seattle Times was nowhere to be found. And then what do? They endorse the people behind this mess for higher office or to get re-elected. No matter how much you hate the Seattle Times, you do not hate them enough. Want me to help you make them hate them more? Here we go. This was from today, from their climate lab. Whenever they say climate lab or education lab, I think to myself, the old science classroom in my high school, and all the people in the Seattle Times are sitting around with Bunsen burners and beakers making things. That's not what they're doing. It's just a way to get a grant from whoever funds the climate lab. What is that, Bill and Melinda Gates? Oh, no, wait, just Bill Gates. Melinda's long gone. So, does the Pacific Northwest have the energy it needs to prevent rolling blackouts? A new report commissioned by the region's largest utilities has raised concerns. Starting next year, the Northwest could face a power shortage that would challenge the reliability of the grid during extreme conditions, according to the report. Hang on a second here. Mike, how long have we been talking about this for? That if they continued with their stupid energy policy, we were going to end up like California? Mike, how long have we known each other? 5 years we've been covering this?
Coming up on 5 years, yeah.
5 years. 5 years we've been discussing we don't want to be like California. What's about to happen? Now, in those 5 years, Mike, what happened? 4 of them, Joe Biden was president. And what did Joe Biden want to do? Tear down the Snake River dams. Who else wanted to do it? Patty Murray wanted to tear down the Snake River dams. In favor of what? We don't know. But in favor of saving the fishies, even though the fish population is coming back because of other efforts. And rather than redouble those efforts, what do they decide to do? They decide, let's tear down the dams. Luckily, Donald Trump gets elected, so now we're not going to tear down the dams. But here's the other thing they did. Hey, how can we incentivize everybody to buy electric and use electric and convert their houses to electric and ban natural gas and then tax gas so people go electric? Well, then what did you do? You put a huge strain on the grid. You guys were even trying to get electric ferries that plug into a wall somewhere. Not really sure where, but that was the plan, even though you already had diesel electric ferries. This was the plan. This was the plan. And now you're shocked you might be about to have an energy shortage? If Democrats were in charge of the Sahara Desert, you would run out of sand because no amount of money will ever be enough for them. Everything they do is garbage policy, and you see it right here. And once again, I ask the Seattle Times, before you do this fear-mongering you're about to do, at any point during this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31 paragraph article. Do you blame the bad policies of the Democrats at any point? Of course not. In fact, you endorse the people behind these bad policies for higher office. A lot of you have been reaching out to me for my voting recommendations. They're up at kvi.com. They're on my social media channels, Ari Hoffman Official on Facebook and Instagram, the Hofffather over on Twitter. I always look at what the Seattle Times endorses. I always look at what the Stranger endorses. And you know what I noticed this year? Many of them had the same people endorsed. There was a ton of crossover. When I talk about how there's nobody worth voting for, there are very, very few people worth voting for. That's one of the reasons why. I cannot believe some of the lunatics. And those guys who want to say, oh, the Seattle Times, well, their editorial staff is conservative. No, they are not. Or they would have spoken up beforehand, but they want to stay in the good graces. And in addition to that, they are the ones who assign these stupid articles and give out assignments. And at no point did they say, hey, guys, did you think about the political ramifications of this? Maybe point the finger at the Democrats who deserve all the blame for this. Maybe name them by name. They published these articles. The editorial staff, the editorial board of the Seattle Times is about as conservative as the election control board over at the Seattle Stranger. That's it. That's how bad it is. There is no media left in Seattle anymore, or maybe they would have reported on all this stuff during the legislative cycle like we were doing. It's insane, absolutely insane that they keep doing this and people keep saying, well, their editorial board is so conservative. No, it's not. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, Washington State student test scores are so bad that Chris Rakedall, our superintendent, scrubbed them from the state website. We'll give you all the details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. So I always think of Zoolander when I think of Chris Rakedahl. I really do. Because we're talking about a scene right out of that movie.
The Derek Zoolander Center for Kids Who Can't Read Good.
What is this?
A center for ants? What?
How can we be expected to teach children to learn how to read if they can't even fit inside the building?
Derek, it's just a
I don't want to hear your excuses! The center has to be at least 3 times bigger than this.
He's absolutely right.
I don't even like that movie. I really don't like that movie, but that line kills every single time. That is the state of education here in Washington. In fact, it's so bad they scrubbed their website so that you wouldn't know how bad it is. Can we go through this for a second, just the odyssey of this for a minute? So, first it's, the grades are bad, we need more money. Then it's, we need more money. Then it's, stop saying the kids are stupid. We're going to make dumb social media videos because you're making the kids feel bad, which really means you're making Chris Rakedahl cry. Then it's, well, we can't do anything about this. Let's just scrub the website. Or better yet, we have now specially hidden recorded conversations of Chris Rakedahl and Jay Inslee. Asking Chris Rakedahl and Jay Inslee, they worked together for years and years and years. So what happened was Chris Rakedahl went to Jay Inslee. Governor, what do we do about the fact that our web statistics are so bad? Here's what you do, Chris. What I want you to do is do what we did with all our accountability websites. Just turn them off. But, Governor, won't people notice that? Silence! I'm King Inslee, the tyrant for Washington. 975 days of emergency powers. I know what I'm doing. Yes, peasant. Just turn it all off like we did with COVID. Remember our dials? Nobody else does. Yeah, that's literally what they're doing. The exact same thing. Washington Office Superintendent of Public Instruction has quietly deleted a key webpage showing Washington's progress towards its own education goals just weeks after updated information was requested according to a new report from the Washington Policy Center. The removed page had tracked the state's progress toward 2027 targets for student achievement, graduation rates, and English learner progress. Timeout. So even with the illegal aliens you gave free schooling to, you can't even teach them English good? Or teach them to read too good. We can't even get them into the building. After being asked about the updated data, OSPI staff acknowledged they had more recent numbers for both the state and local districts, but the agency had never updated the public page. Instead, in early September, the entire state targets webpage disappeared. So you know what probably happened? They didn't update this thing, whether through sheer bureaucratic incompetence or because they didn't want anybody to know how bad it was. And then when somebody reminded them, they go, quick, get rid of it. It's like Dr. Evil sitting in his chair and just pushing the buttons for who's going to fall through the floor into the pit of fire next. For more than a decade, Washington State's performance has been slipping. You mean during Chris Rakedahl's tenure? Between 2013 and 2024, the state's fourth grade math ranking fell from 10th in the nation to 27th, while reading dropped from 14th to 18th. During the same time period, Mississippi, once among the lowest performing states, surged past Washington in both reading and math. Do you know why that is? We're not teaching reading and math. What are we teaching? We are teaching DEI nonsense. Teaching these kids how to be members of Antifa. Teaching these kids how to hate Jews and hate Israel. That's what we're teaching in these schools. Teaching them to riot with BLM. Despite these troubling trends, OSPI Superintendent Chris Rakedahl has dismissed concerns, calling national comparisons misleading or incomplete. He instead pointed to the state's internal metrics, which were meant to measure whether Washington was on track to meet its own benchmarks by 2027. Those metrics are now gone. You couldn't even hit your own metrics, not the national metrics. You couldn't even hit the own ones you make up. It's like me trying to diet, right? Okay, I'm not going to eat this today, and then I'm not going to calorie count or anything. I'm just not going to eat this, and then I'll lose weight, right? This is crazy. Absolutely crazy. Before the page was removed, the most recent data available dated back to the 2018-19 school year. When questioned about the outdated figures, OSPI initially promised an update but never delivered one. Weeks later, the webpage tracking progress towards state goals was scrubbed entirely without notice or explanation. Now, only raw test data remains. The 2024-2025 Washington State Report Card lists that 70.9% of students achieve levels 2, 3, or 4 in English language arts, far below the former goal of 90% proficiency. 63.3% reach levels 2, 3, or 4 in math, also well short of targets. Without benchmarks, it may be difficult for parents, educators, or lawmakers to determine whether Washington's education system is on track or falling further behind. Let's not remember the last time we had this data, two-thirds of Washington State 4th and 8th graders, which are the grades that are used to track this stuff, were not at reading level, were not at math level. Two-thirds. Critics say the move mirrors past actions by state officials to obscure disappointing outcomes. In 2019, then Governor Jay Inslee's Results Washington initiative also removed performance data from public view before his presidential campaign launch. Wait a second. I'm kind of wondering, how did that presidential campaign launch go for Jay Inslee? I mean, I remember it being pretty bad. I remember him not doing well at all. What was his polling there at the end?
0.0.
Exactly. But he scrubbed the whole thing. And now, let's not forget, we had the Washington Policy Center's Vice President of Research, Todd Myers, on the show last week to talk about the fact that now they have to sue to get the climate data because Jay Inslee doesn't want you to know that all their climate programs have been a colossal waste of money and have failed. The disappearance of achievement targets also comes amid the record spending we mentioned earlier. Over the past decade, Washington has dramatically increased K-12 funding, and a recent Wallet Hub study ranks the state third in the nation for teacher compensation. Yet the student outcomes have continued to worsen even as taxpayers pour more money into the system. Superintendent Rakedahl has yet to explain why the target data was removed after the inquiry or how the state plans to reverse years of academic decline. Yeah, this is, I'm laughing to keep from crying. It is that bad. That bad. John in Auburn says, Ari, I think your Jay Inslee impression is morphing into Mr. Smithers from The Simpsons. Yeah, no, that's Chris Rakedahl as Mr. Smithers. You mean Mr. Burns. That's what you mean. Yes, excellent. Smithers, massage my brain. Yes, I agree. My bad Inslee impression. Oh, unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable, yet so expected at this point. Speaking of expected, Karine Jean-Pierre is now dumping the Democrat Party because nobody wants to hire her. But I don't think they like her so much on the Republican side of the aisle. She's on a book tour, and it's not going so well. We'll have that insane audio for you when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, download the KVI app and subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. That way you never miss a minute of the show. Reminder also, share it on social media with your friends so that way they can enjoy it as well. So a little peek behind the curtain of how things work here over at KVI. There's 2 TVs in my studio, and there are 2 TVs in Mike's studio. Occasionally they're on in my studio because the remotes control all 4 of them. Sometimes they just pop on randomly, and I'm not even planning on watching them. I'm like the dog in Up. Squirrel! I can't have distractions in here. Yesterday, Mike was calling me out for having the game on in here during the show, where I'm like, oh no, look what happened, right?
Yeah, Mr. KVI, like, he even asked me, it's like, can Ari handle? I'm like, I believe in Ari Hoffman. like Harvey Dent, I believe in Ari Hoffman, and I live to be disappointed.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I just love the creative design here in the studio. We have 4 televisions. All 4 of them are the same brand, so you can operate them with one remote. So you have to, like, cup your hand against one side of the remote, but you got to stand close enough, but not too close. Otherwise, I'm turning your TV off while I'm trying to turn mine on. It's a mess.
Yes, my favorite is when somebody accidentally hits the unmute button in your side.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, no,
yes.
sorry. You mute it in your side, and it unmutes it in my side, and then all of a sudden I'm hearing whatever it is. So yesterday the TVs are on in here. One's got the game on, and the other one's got the news on. And I see that Karine Jean-Pierre is on the interview circuit.
Now, that's a name I've not heard in a long time. A long time.
Karine Jean-Pierre, the disaster, failed White House press secretary who was either out of the loop on everything or completely incompetent, who lied, not spun, lied to the American public for her entire career. The understudy who was promoted far, far too soon is out there doing a tour. Now, before we start bashing Karine Jean-Pierre, my wife always pointed out that as terrible as she was, and as awful as she was, and as dumb as she appeared, she had great fashion sense. It seemed like she spent more time on her fashion than she spent on actually preparing for, the press briefing. The woman I saw on TV yesterday was a shell of that woman. She did not look great. I don't know who's doing her fashion. Maybe that was a White House perk or something, but it appears to have gone by the wayside. And I know it's not polite to comment on how a lady looks, but I was shocked, jolted, in fact, because it looks like something's wrong. She doesn't look like her, or some stylist made a really, really bad mistake. And I wonder if the stress of her reputation being in ruins has actually gotten to her. That's why I ask that question, because she doesn't look great. She just doesn't. It's just a mess. So she's doing the interview circuit, and she's trying to rewrite her own history. She now has a book called Independent. I don't want to buy it. I think I might actually, ask for a press copy or something, because I don't want to spend the money on that. People like me spending the money on Kamala Harris's book made it go to #1. That's my fault. I take the blame for that. Nope. Getting press copies from now on, so you don't have to read this thing.
You bought the Kamala Harris book. You bought the Jake Tapper
I know.
book.
I'm not doing that anymore, man. This is my fault. It's people like me. This is my fault. So I'm not doing that with her book, okay? Because when I say I bought a book, everybody runs to do it. I'm better than the New York Times bestseller list. That's what it is. You get the Ari Hoffman seal of approval from Amazon that I bought that book for as cheap as I could, and with whatever rewards points from the credit card I had saved up. That's In fact, I don't think I've ever actually spent any money, just reward money on these books. It doesn't matter. I could have used that reward money on anything else. Electronics, TVs that don't unmute on one side and mute on the other side. But whatever the case may be.
Maybe less coaxial cable dangling between the 2 TVs. Real sharp.
Yes.
Real sharp.
Yes, things like that in our state-of-the-art studio here. So I was watching the interviews, and I went back to get the audio because I couldn't hear them during the show, and I was so curious what they were talking about. Apparently she's not a Democrat anymore. So the Democrat Party has totally chucked her by the wayside, just like they threw away Joe Biden. So now she's trying to do a press tour. It's not going so well. It's really just not. Because she's still saying the same things about Joe Biden.
I was saying, because I too thought that. And you said, people said, why didn't members of his inner circle speak up about what many believe was the apparent decline of Joe Biden. You said you're a member of the inner circle and you never saw the decline. And after that, I wrote, how? Yeah. You even write, Karine, that you were on the plane with him going to the debate and you didn't see anything.
Well, when we were on Air Force One going to the debate, you got to remember his campaign people were on the team, his family was on the team. I actually was one of those rare trips that I didn't really see him until after the debate, even though I was on the plane. So really, I want everybody to know that I take this question incredibly seriously. I do. I was his White House press secretary, which means I had a role that saw him practically every day and traveled with him.
And you saw nothing.
For more than 95%. We've always said, we're not going to say, oh, he didn't age. He aged. And he poked fun at it. We always owned up. And with age comes what happens when you get older.
Which is?
But when we talk about the mental acuity, and again, I take this very, very seriously. Yeah. I never saw anyone who wasn't there. I saw someone who was always engaged.
Oh, stop. Oh, stop. We're still doing this? He's so sharp. He's so sharp. Behind closed doors, he's so sharp. He's brilliant. He's with it. He asks the best questions. Then how come that's not the guy we ever see? Here's something else. For those of you who haven't learned about body language, who haven't done debate or public speaking, whenever you say repeatedly, honestly, or I'm telling the truth, or I take this very seriously, immediately the person who's listening goes, were you not taking it seriously before? Were you not honest before? Were you not truthful before? Why does she keep saying that again and again and again? Because she's not being truthful, and she can't defend it. Even Stephen Colbert was calling her out.
So that's number one. My job was to speak to what the decision he made in the sense of continuing, trying to lift up the policies and the legislative wins that we did have. We did have legislative wins.
Sure,
and
he didn't talk about them that well, though. He couldn't talk.
Oh, sorry, that's a podcast. I got Stephen Colbert next.
He wasn't campaigning.
No. Wait. First of all, he did talk about them. Whether it broke through or not, he did. Tim, he did talk about.
I mean, he talked way less to the press than Donald Trump does. Way less. And he wasn't out there at all. He wasn't good off the cuff. He wasn't doing press conferences. Let's just be real. Like, he didn't do debate events.
Tim, that's not true. Tim, you're conflating all of it.
Okay. Good luck with that. So you're doubling down on all the lies you told before. You're not going to sell any books that way. You know why everybody was interested in Jake Tapper's book? Because we go, finally, he's telling the truth. He didn't tell it before, and we question him about that. But now you're doubling down on your insanity.
I remember in the waning days of the Biden White House, where we had speculated on this show what Karine Jean-Pierre is going to do, because we had even wondered how much she's holding the line. Mm-hmm. It's like, why is she running cover for Joe Biden? Does she actually believe this? Is she as dumb as she seems? Is it all smoke and mirrors? You know what? She's going to write a book. What's that book going to be about? Is it going to be a bombshell expose of like, oh man, I was under duress by the party and like I had to carry the water. I was a patsy. No, I think even now she believes everything she said from that podium. Like, you've got that clip of Stephen Colbert coming up, but like, I watched that whole segment, and Stephen Colbert like rips into her, and she argues with him and stands her ground and says, no, Joe Biden's policies were great. He's spry, the vigor, like all of those talking points. She still emphatically brings that up. You talk about like body language and stuff. At one point, she's like practically leaning over Colbert's desk, like getting in his face, getting in his space, saying like, no, this is how it was. Joe Biden was super awesome.
He's super with it. He's super fresh.
The vigor,
the energy. You know what, Mike? If she had written a tell-all and say they were threatening me or I thought I was going to lose my career, we would have had her on the show. And you know what? Everybody else on our side of the aisle would have had her on the show. And you know what would have happened? She would have a spot on Fox right next to people like Mark Furman. That's what would have happened, right?
And at the very least, we'd have bought the book.
Exactly.
This is nothing.
No.
Who is this for?
Nobody's buying this thing because you're just repeating the same garbage as before. There's nothing new we're going to find out in this book. You buy the book so you find out what's new. And the fact that nobody's talking about the content of the book means they're not reading it or there's nothing original in it.
We spent 4 years with her. We know there's nothing there.
Exactly.
There's nothing there.
At least Kamala Harris's ghostwriters gave us something. She's spilling the tea on everybody. She hates everybody. At least that's fun when we get the burn book like in Mean Girls. That's not what we got out of her. So this is going to be a failure. And you know what? She could have said Jill Biden was evil. She could have made it all up and we would have wanted to believe it. We would have been desperate to believe it.
Dr. Jill had a derringer plunged in the small of my back at all times. It's like, smile for the crowd, Corrine.
Exactly.
Everything's going to go okay, Corrine. Okay, Dr. Jill, I'll say whatever you want.
Could have done that. Here's what happened with Colbert.
Do you recommend everyone leave the party? And if so, where do they go? Because organization is how you face tyranny. Freelancing isn't going to get anybody anything done.
So here's the thing. I'm not telling everybody to be an independent.
Hang on. Freelancing isn't going to get anything done. Who now runs CBS News, Stephen Colbert? Oh, wait a minute. Barry Weiss is your new boss, kind of?
I'm trying to start a conversation. I'm not saying that we need a third party. I am saying that right now the two-party system is not working.
I mean, I don't disagree. But basically, one party doesn't want you and one party knows you're a liar. If she was good at her job and if the Democrats liked her, she'd already have a gig on MSNBC. She'd already have a gig on CNN. She'd already have a gig somewhere. You haven't heard from her for months. And now she's out with a book.
Also, what are those morons clapping for? Ooh, more fish, more fish.
Yeah, no, what they want is they want socialism, the Stephen Colbert people. Yeah, they want the socialism party. That's what they want. Oh, insane. Absolutely insane in the membrane. When we come back, minimum wage fails again. Shock, shock, no surprise. Gavin Newsom was wrong. Tell you all about the numbers when we come back and what it means for Washington. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Math is math. And no matter how much you try and change math, no matter how much you try and manipulate or change data, real math will always come through. There's a new report out from the National Bureau of Economic Research, which was highlighted by the Washington Policy Center, talking about Washington's minimum wage by comparing it to California's minimum wage and whether or not it's been successful. Because California jacked up the prices of fast food workers of their minimum wage to $20 an hour, and how'd that go? Less hours, more firings, less money. Just like it did here in Seattle, just like it does every time this is tried. Because when you artificially jack up the minimum wage, what happens is the market can't keep up, the business owners can't keep up because they can't afford something thrown on them that increases prices that much. They either have to raise prices or fire people. And if they raise prices, they don't have customers anymore. Assembly Bill 1228, enacted in September of 2023 and fully implemented in April of 2024, was pushed by Governor Gavin Newsom as a win-win for workers, businesses, and the economy. But according to the National Bureau of Economic Research, the real-world outcome has been a steep contraction in employment across the fast food industry. Roughly 18,000 fewer fast food jobs in California compared with where the sector would have been without the hike, a 2.7% employment decline or 3.2% when adjusted for pre-law trends. The findings highlight how the wage mandate derailed what had been a fragile post-pandemic recovery in the food service employment. So things were bad from the pandemic, and then you guys decide to make it worse. Additionally, non-tipped restaurant employees have lost an average of 250 working hours per year, equating to about $4,000 in lost income, roughly 7 weeks of full-time pay. Congratulations. You played yourselves. We said this was going to happen. Anybody who does math knows this was going to happen. This was inevitable.
Congratulations. You played yourself.
Lots more to discuss as the show continues. When we come back, J.D. Vance is in the Middle East. Give you all details on if he can keep the peace plan together. What's actually happening? Can the Trump administration keep the ceasefire intact? We'll have those details for you, plus a whole lot more. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free for all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Seattle's left is about to become victims of their own voting record, and Curtis Sliwa won't drop out. Can Mamdani be stopped? But before we get to any of that, I got some fun texts over here on the Warrior Injury Law text line. So we were talking about Karine Jean-Pierre a couple segments ago. So let's circle back to that for a second. Yeah. Wait, that was Jen Psaki, I know. But this one here from Robin Lakewood. KJP, I almost feel sorry for her. She was DEI pumped and dumped. And you know what? That's not untrue. She was hired because she was the first black lesbian woman or whatever it was to have the job, and she wasn't qualified for it. Unfortunately, what happened to her is you sometimes get so excited by, oh my God, I got this position. Should you actually take that position? That's a real thing here. Conway says, Joe Biden's incoherency was all a deceptive ploy to make all those around him appear smarter. Well, Conway, I think that's stretching it a little bit. I think those people thought they were smarter, but didn't come off as smarter. I do this with the news people all the time. Whenever they criticize somebody in the Trump administration, I always say, can you name one person who is qualified in the Biden administration? Just name one. All I'm looking for is one. They can never give me one. This seems to be a theme around here. Steve from Shoreline says, Jean-Pierre is a DEI appointed press secretary. What do you expect? Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. This is something else, is that everybody's talking about the tax increases here in Washington, which we did in the last hour. So tax increases here in Washington affect everybody, and they're only going to get worse. You know, whenever I'm on Newsmax, they always say, one of the producers always says, so Ari, when are you moving to Florida? And I always say the same thing. If I move to Florida, you don't need me anymore. You're not going to interview me about the insanity in the West Coast if I live in Florida. But also, I don't want to move. Why should I move? It's beautiful here. I mean, it sucks, and I want to keep fighting for it. This one here from Becky and Enumclaw. You know, with all tax increases and all the baloney from Ferguson and everybody else, what still gets me is the fact that people are still voting for this nonsense, and they're still electing officials, and that's very disheartening. Anyway, on my way to a running class, and you have put a smile on my face, and I'll be listening in the car. Well, thank you, Becky. I do appreciate that. This is the thing, is that we know what they're trying to do is pass a statewide income tax. And what they're going to say is, hey, since the taxes are so regressive, what we're going to do is we're going to pass this income tax so you'll pay less in taxes, but they're not going to repeal any of the other taxes. That is the game plan here. You get that already? That's exactly what it is. Jeff and Kent agrees with me. He says they're shooting for an income tax. It's a setup. He says Bob regularly hears from Republicans and then promptly ignores them, starting with a $15 billion surplus, which is what we used to have. $32 billion if you start with the $15 billion surplus. He's right. They're shooting for an income tax. It's all a setup. He's 100% correct, and that's what you have to watch out for. Switching gears to what's going on in the Middle East, Vice President J.D. Vance flew on over to Israel today. They're trying to keep the peace deal together. What's happening to the peace deal right now, the ceasefire right now, is Hamas. Hamas is the problem. And if Hamas doesn't disarm, it will derail the peace deal. Now, the problem is Qatar and Turkey are supposed to be leaning on Hamas to disarm, and yet you don't really see them doing it. So Trump puts out his threats and says, you guys better do something about this, or I'm going to let Israel do the job. What happens if Israel does the job? Immediately, we're back to the riots in the streets, right? That's what it is. You don't hear any of these keffiyeh-wearing college kids now that Hamas is shooting their own citizens in the streets. In fact, Bill Maher called this out on his show.
Have you noticed that now that Hamas has taken over again, they're, what?
Shooting everybody.
Shooting everybody. Where are the protesters? Suddenly, the keffiyeh-wearing college kids are very quiet.
Can't be found anywhere.
This is okay? It's just amazing, the asymmetry of what goes on.
So what's happening is Hamas is reverting to Hamas. They're reverting back to being what they are, which is terrorists. Now that Israel's not there, keeping Hamas at bay, now they're killing their own citizens, which they've been doing for years and years and years, and attacking Israel all over again. They're trying to reestablish control over the Gaza Strip. So the question is, how is it actually going? We're seeing these reports. It doesn't look good. So J.D. Vance addressed them directly today.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to have you. Look, I think that we are 1 week into President Trump's historic peace plan in the Middle East, and things are going, frankly, better than I expected that they were. This is a very, very tough situation. You have two peoples, two enemies who have fought a very tough conflict against each other. You have a terrorist organization on one hand that murdered a lot of innocent people. You've got an Israeli army that was defending itself on the other that has learned a lot over the past couple of years. And then, of course, you have an innocent civilian population in Gaza that's caught in the middle. But here at the Civilian Military Cooperation Center, which we are announcing the opening of, you have Israelis and Americans working hand in hand to try to begin the plan to rebuild Gaza, to implement a long-term peace, and to actually ensure that you have security forces on the ground in Gaza, not composed of Americans, who can keep the peace over the long term. So we've got a lot of work left to do. This is going to take a very, very long time, but I think Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and Admiral Cooper behind me have done an incredible job. I want to say just a couple of quick things, and then I want to turn it over to Steve Witkoff. Number one, the Israeli government has been remarkably helpful in this. I want to thank them, thank our Israeli partners, and all the folks particularly who are working hand in hand with their American friends here at the CMCC. And number two, I want to say that there is this weird attitude I've sensed in the American media and the Western media where there's almost this desire to root for failure, that every time something bad happens, that every time that there's an act of violence, there's this inclination to say, oh, this is the end of the ceasefire, this is the end of the peace plan. It's not the end. It is, in fact, exactly how this is going to have to happen when you have people who hate each other, who have been fighting against each other for a very long time. We are doing very well. We are in a very good place. We're going to have to keep working on it, but I think we have the team to do exactly that. So with all thanks to our partners, both in Israel but all across the Gulf Arab states, Indonesia, the Turks, we are doing an amazing thing here, and I'm particularly proud of the American troops working at the command center who are coordinating this effort and making it possible.
There's one thing standing in the way, and that's Hamas. If Hamas laid down their arms, there'd be no more war. If Israel lays down its arms, there's no more Israel. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. So, what exactly is the solution? I love J.D. Vance, but this one kind of threw me.
We're not going to force anything on our Israeli friends when it comes to foreign troops on their soil, but we do think that there's a constructive role for the Turks to play, and frankly, they've already played a very constructive role. We're very grateful for that. And you asked, they've supported Hamas in the past. No one who is a party to this conflict can look in the past and not point at something that they don't like or that they disagree with. Everybody who's been involved in this conflict can point at one other person. One of these flags can point at another flag and say, we hate that person for various reasons. The way that we're going to get to peace is to focus on the future, which is what the President of the United States has asked us to do. And we think everybody here is very willing to do that and is very eager to engage in that effort.
Yeah. So what you're saying about the flags on either side, one side is a terrorist organization, one side is a U.S. ally. And the U.S. ally here won the war. That's my little issue with what he just said. He's 100% right in what he just said, that, look, these people don't like each other very much. I get that. I totally get that. But you have to keep things in perspective. Now, I'm not going to get mad about this because one little comment when everything else is the problem, when everything else is going exactly the way we want it to go, it is going to take time, but you have to get rid of Hamas first. If you don't get rid of Hamas, then none of this is going to change. Nothing at all. What else did he say here?
Let me say just a couple of words about the deceased hostages. I mean, one of the stations that I met with, one of the groups that's working on this that I met with earlier, they actually have a photo of the 15 deceased hostages who are still in Gaza. It is a focus of everybody here to get those bodies back home to their families so that they can have a proper burial. Now, that said, this is difficult. This is not going to happen overnight. Some of these hostages are buried under thousands of pounds of rubble. Some of the hostages, nobody even knows where they are. That doesn't mean we shouldn't work to get them, and that doesn't mean we don't have confidence that we will. It's just a reason to counsel in favor of a little bit of patience. This is going to take a little bit of time. And look, our warning to Hamas is very straightforward. The terms of the 20-point plan that the president put out there is very clear. It's supported not just by Israel, but by all of our Gulf Arab friends. It's that Hamas has to disarm. It's that Hamas has to actually behave itself. And that Hamas, while all the fighters can be given some sort of clemency, they're not going to be able to kill each other, and they're not going to be able to kill their fellow Palestinians. Now, again, that's going to take a little bit of time. We're talking about how to set up the security and humanitarian apparatus to put all this in place. But right now, where I stand, I feel confident that we're going to be in a place where this peace lasts, where it's durable. And if Hamas doesn't cooperate, then as the President of the United States has said, Hamas is going to be obliterated.
Yes, and that's what has to happen. If that doesn't happen, this peace deal has no chance whatsoever. So you're telling me the terrorist group is refusing to disarm? You're telling me that the terrorist group still wants to be terrorists? Oh, shock, shock. This is how they were raised. So UNRWA, United Nations Worker Relief Agency, the one that's in charge of Palestinian refugees that have been refugees for almost 80 years at this point, that agency is the one that ran all the schools there. That agency is the one that had people embedded with the terrorists on October 7th. That one is the one that trained these kids to hate Jews and to raise them to be the best terrorists they could possibly be. Now they want back into the country. Why do you think that is? Why do you think Hamas wanted all those terrorists in exchange for the hostages? Why do you think that is? Because they want to rearm and they want to pick up the fight. They think this is like every other conflict where Israel just goes away for a while. They can rearm. They can start this all over again. Not going to happen. Now, the difference is the Arab world says it's ready for Hamas to disarm when they've been emboldening them in the past. The question is, are they actually going to hold them to it? Is Qatar actually going to hold them to it? Is Turkey actually going to hold them to it? What do you think? Do you think this thing is going to last? Do you think Hamas will actually be forced to disarm? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Here's more of what the vice president had to say.
This model, I think, could serve for a foundation for normalization, not just in the Middle East, but across the world. Because what we're taking, again, is a long-term, protracted conflict with two enemies who really don't like each other, and we're actually creating a model that can lead towards sustainable peace. Now, we know that a lot of our Gulf Arab friends would like to have normalized relations with Israel. We know that getting this peace on a sustainable pathway is sort of the critical first step of that. But look, I feel very optimistic about where we are. Knock on wood, you never know how this stuff is going to go. But given what I've seen, given the incredible talent and effort that's going in to the reconstruction of Gaza, to the long-term security of the Gazans in that territory, I feel very good about where we are. And again, if we get this right, I really do think it's going to be a domino that leads to a lot of further peace all across the region.
He's right. Why did Hamas carry out October 7th? Because they were worried about Saudi Arabia joining the Abraham Accords, and they wanted to stop it. They wanted to cause chaos. Because if Saudi Arabia goes, they lead the Arab world, and everybody else falls in line behind them. If this actually happens, you could actually have peace in the Middle East. You could actually have that. Now, the big concern is, are there going to be American boots on the ground? There are American boots on the ground right now in a support role, not in a combat role. The last time I was in Israel, there were Americans everywhere, and I don't mean tourists like me. I mean actual Americans in a support role, and that was back when Joe Biden was president. J.D. Vance just said there are Americans there helping with the aid and not in Joe Biden's $650 million boondoggle of a floating dock to get aid to Hamas. So, what does the vice president say about American boots on the ground in a combat role?
I think it's important for Americans to know a couple of things. Number one, there are not going to be American boots on the ground in Gaza. The President of the United States has made that very clear. All of our military leadership has made that very clear. What we can do is provide some useful coordination. How do you take, the Gulf Arab states, plus Israel, plus, plus the Turks, plus the Indonesians? How do you actually get those folks to work together in a way that actually produces long-term peace? The only real mediators are the United States of America. And so that's the role that we're going to play. I think the American people should be proud of it, but they should know that there are going to be no American boots on the ground in Gaza.
Yes, that's exactly right, in a combat capacity. They need to keep saying in a combat capacity because they are there helping with aid. They are there helping with support. They are there in a logistics function. They are there, but you mean in a combat function. 100% correct. Absolutely. So, what does the president say about all this? Because it seems like him and J.D. Vance are in lockstep.
I'm looking at what's happening, and that wasn't the deal that was made, and we'll see what happens. It's calmed down. It's a tough neighborhood. We know that. We have a commitment from them, and I assume they're going to honor that commitment. I hope they do. And I understand they brought back some additional bodies today. It's a rough deal when you think of it, right? Very rough. And we have our hostages back completely. We were very lucky with that. But it's a tough situation. They brought back bodies today, as you probably know. But they also said they're going to behave. We're going to find out if they behave. If they behave good, if they don't behave, we'll take care of it.
That means Hamas. If they don't behave, we'll take care of it. That means Hamas. And by we, he means letting Israel do what Israel does. Question is the international community going to go for that? If Trump turns to Israel and says, go for it, go do what you got to do, then is Turkey going to back out of the deal? Is Qatar going to back out of the deal? They're trying to stop that from happening by saying, no, you guys need to force Hamas to disarm. You need to stop supplying them. You know, there are drones going from Egypt into Gaza right now trying to drop off weapons. Israel's shooting most of them down. But you know that's an ongoing problem, so you need to lean on Egypt. If you want actual peace in the Middle East, and you don't want more Americans killed on another October 7th style attack, you need to shut down Hamas. And let's not forget, Hamas wants the end of America as much as it wants the end of Israel. So I ask again, do you think this deal is sustainable? Do you think it is something that is going to continue? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Because as we stated earlier, it seems like the media wants it to fail just because they want Trump to fail. They couldn't celebrate the Abraham Accords when they happened, even though they were historic. They couldn't celebrate this peace deal when it happened, even though it was historic. These guys will only celebrate it if a Democrat does it. Joe Biden was a colossal failure. He caused this entire mess by refunding terrorist organizations. And yet they praised him. Look how well he did with this ceasefire deal. None of them lasted. None of them. And yet he was seen as a brilliant one. Christina Amanpour, the head foreign correspondent for CNN, found herself in some hot water the other day and had to do an online apology for it because it was so bad. This is CNN.
Now, earlier live on air, I spoke about what a day of real joy this is for Israeli families whose loved ones are finally being returned from 2 years of horrific Hamas captivity, and for civilians in Gaza who finally had a reprieve from 2 years of brutal and deadly war. I noted that for the hostages who are finally home, it'll take a long time for them to recover mentally and physically. But I regret also saying that they might have been treated better than many Gazans because Hamas used these hostages as pawns and bargaining chips. But that was insensitive and it was wrong. From speaking to many former hostages and their families, like everyone, I've been horrified at what Hamas has subjected them to over 2 long years.
Yeah, trying to compare them to the Palestinian prisoners, terrorists, by the way, who were treated well. And then you have these people who look like they came out of a concentration camp coming back from the tunnels. Are you kidding me with that? Are you kidding me with that? This is how the media is covering it. Moral equivalency. Trump can do no right. Moral equivalency between Israel and Hamas terrorists. This is the problem. It's almost like they're rooting for it to fail. It's almost like they're rooting for Hamas. It seems like they're always taking Hamas aside. When Hamas violates the ceasefire, they blame it on Israel, even though there's no evidence to support their point. Christina Amanpour, how many times have we had these kind of issues with her? Time after time after time. That's not just about Israel. It's about Ukraine. It's about Russia. It's about every other foreign correspondent, every other foreign war that she's been covering as a correspondent. Every single one. The media wants these things to fail so they can attack Donald Trump. They can't even give him the win. All the people with the Ukrainian flags, they can't give him the win. All the people who said ceasefire, 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 they don't want to give him the win. They want it to keep going, which is the craziest part of all of this. When we come back, your calls, your texts, because it looks like a lot of you have things you want to weigh in on. Plus, Seattle's about to become victims of their own voting record. We'll tell you what's about to happen in Capitol Hill. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast right now on The Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Don't worry about missing a show because you can always download the KVI app and, of course, subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Remember, while you're there, to rate, subscribe, and share so that way you and your friends never miss a minute of the show. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Steve in Kent. Steve, what's going on?
Oh, you were wanting to know what we felt about Hamas being disarmed?
Yeah.
And I think the IDF is going to have to disarm every individual member of Hamas.
Yep, I think you're 100% right.
The left arm, first the right arm and then the left arm, like in Monty Python.
Yes, it's merely a flesh wound. Merely a flesh wound. Oh, very good, Steve. Very, very good. Yeah, these guys don't give up. They think they're dealing with the Nazis, and they're modern-day Nazis, but they're even more radical because these guys believe there is honor in death. They believe a reward waits for them in death. And a lot of Nazis thought they were doing it for the Führer, or they thought they were doing it for the fatherland. And then when that thing fell apart, they realized they had lost and the cause was done and Hitler was dead. Here, when these guys die, they want to have 72 Sturgeons or 72 Virginians or whatever it is they get up there. And that's why they just don't stop. Steve, appreciate the call, appreciate the humor, appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757.
Did you say 72 Virginians?
Yes. You never heard that joke before?
Like the citizens of Virginia? I mean, I suppose it could be worse. Could be 72 West Virginians, if you know what I mean, and I think you do.
That's an old joke. I just remember the punchline. It's 72 Virginians. I don't remember the actual joke. I just remember the punchline is 70. If you guys know that joke, you can call in with it at 206-4215. It's basically a guy gets up and like all of a sudden these guys come and kill. It's like Osama bin Laden goes wherever and then gets killed. And we said, no, it's 72 Virginians. I don't remember the joke. I'm just telling you. See, you're laughing and you don't even know the joke either.
It's funny. I like it. I mean, don't get me wrong.
That's a tuna or something.
No, that's the 72 Sturgeon.
That's a tuna, bro.
Sturgeon, not tuna, bro. Sturgeon. Anywho, this one here from
Only in America.
That's the Virginians, not the Sturgeons. This one here from Tammy over on the text line. With it happening this early in Trump's presidency, she's referring to the peace plan. It has a much better chance of taking foothold than if it were at the end of his presidency. That's right. He's got 3 years to get everybody in line. That's an excellent point, Tammy. This one, Stephen Shoreline. I believe the peace deal will hold up, but it will take a long time because every society, old or new, has its bad actors. Unfortunately, talking about an entire society of bad actors here. That's the problem. I agree with you, Steve. Great text today. This one, Pam from Lake Stephen says, many don't seem to understand the exact consequences of their voting choices. They are just making choices that they feel are compassionate and environmentally conscious. Unfortunately, many don't check on results. It's easier to rely on the abundant narrative than delve deep into the actual accountability and results. Pam, that is the perfect text to be a segue into the next story I have for you. This one here from Woke 5, King 5 News itself. Nearly 80 people signed up to speak at the King Council meeting earlier this month, with most weighing in on the county's plan to open a crisis care center in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood. So wait a minute, hang on. You're going to open a homeless shelter with drugs and all the fixins smack dab in the historically LGBTQIA plus minus sign, divided sign, dollar sign, amperstamp community of Seattle, the wokest neighborhood in Seattle. You're going to put a homeless shelter there? And let me make sure I got this right. All the people are mad about it. This is great. The center, slated for 1145 Broadway, the former Polyclinic building, is part of a broader initiative funded by a voter-approved levy in 2023 to create 5 behavioral health crisis centers across the county. One is already open in Kirkland. I love this. Behavioral health crisis. You mean for the drug addicts and the mentally deranged? And the people mentally deranged because of drugs? Public comment reflected strong support for expanding mental health services, but also concern over the location, cost, and what happened to being accepting? See, this is what we used to say. Oh, Tammy Morales, you want to have homeless people in our district? Put them in your house. Don't put them in our house. Expanding crisis of behavioral health care is important, said Mark Newton, but rushing this purchase may well prove to be a huge mistake. How'd it work out with the Navigation Center in Chinatown International District? How'd it work out? They left it there for, 20 years, and it destroyed the Chinatown International District. Businesses moved out. People moved out. This is funny. This is really funny. The council unanimously approved the ordinance to move forward with the project, despite some members raising concerns over the price tag. Yeah, it's not the price tag they're freaking out about. So you're saying these far left people don't want this thing? Here's an example. First Hill resident Aaron Reinhardt. I voted for crisis care. I voted for the levy. I believe that, yes, we need to provide help for people. I don't think this money should be spent hand over fist rehabbing an old building, meaning build it somewhere else, far away from my house. This is great. Yeah, just like Pam said, these people don't understand the consequences of their own voting. Speaking of the consequences of their own voting, there's an article I saw from the Neighborhoods for Smart Streets talking about Katie Wilson, who has consistently advocated to defund, disband, and abolish the city of Seattle law enforcement systems. Beginning in 2020, Wilson advocated for a future entirely without SPD. That's a direct quote. She wrote a Cascade PBS column that year, plainly saying, let's stick with the current movement demanding the cutting of SPD budget by half. In that column, she left unanswered questions regarding whether police abolition is possible under capitalism, but professed there's a strong argument for simply disbanding police departments and starting over. When the Seattle City Council proceeded to slash SPD funding by 20% at the time, Wilson said she was disappointed that more significant moves hadn't been made in this budget to reduce the size of the police force. Wilson also stated she was hopeful that attrition strategy will actually reduce some SPD numbers as the year goes on. Oh, this is great. Now we know exactly how she stands. As the head of the Transit Riders Union, she served as the lead architect of the Solidarity budget. In that capacity, she wrote, SPD has 1,070 cops on the streets. SPD should continue to shrink the force and reduce the numbers of funded sworn officer positions to 750. The Solidarity budget she also helped craft also provides the 2022 budget should reflect a full divestment from the racist, failed war on drugs in the form of fully defunding the Narcotics Investigation Unit. Well, we did that. We did that with the Blake decision and many other things. How's that working out for everybody? Mike and I were at the Seahawks game last night. And last night we had a bit of a travel snafu. And the travel snafu was we didn't know the monorail stopped running at 9 o'clock at night. So the game is over at like 10-ish? We get to the monorail by 10:20-ish. And we're thinking, okay, it's got to be open till at least 11, right? Push the button on that little elevator and it's not lighting up. So we pull on the door and door's locked. And we go around the other side of Westlake Center. That door's locked. This is our mass transit system. Closed at 9 on a game night when there's 2 games, as a matter of fact. 3. You had the Kraken playing, and they lost. Then you had the people watching the Mariners game at T-Mobile, and then you had the Seahawks game. And the monorail's not running, which is a key cog in our transportation network.
Which is so funny because just hours earlier, taking the monorail to Westlake Center to catch the light rail, we were so complimentary of their use of turnstiles and ticket stations.
Yes.
It's like, oh man, this is how private industry does it. They've got this figured out.
Until
and they even had like a dude there also that was just watching people pass through the turnstiles and whatnot.
And no homeless people. Maybe they know the homeless people come out at night because we saw them on the streets when we were walking back. That's what. Maybe it's. Oh, we don't want the riffraff at night because I noticed on weekends they're open later when other people are out, but not the riffraff being out. Also, private industry knows when people are actually riding the thing. So I assume we're the only ones who really need to go back to Seattle Center when nothing's happening in the middle of the night. I think they're a little more conscious of that. I don't think they accounted for Ari and Big Mike going to the Seahawks game. You know what? Next time we should tell them. I'm sure they'll keep it open for celebrities like us.
Yeah, just so you know, we're coming back. Keep it warm.
Absolutely. But why do I mention this is because as we were walking back, because the monorail wasn't working, the riffraff on the streets. Yes, we saw the Seattle streets after dark. Not that it's much of a surprise to us. So we're going to dump that in Capitol Hill. So Katie Wilson wants that in the whole city. Bravo, guys. If you guys vote for Katie Wilson, you're just condemning Seattle to it. You really, really are. Not that Bruce Harrell's any better. I mean, look what he's perpetuating around here. In fact, New York finds itself in an equally bad position. And when we come back, is it time to say goodbye to New York? Is Curtis Sliwa actually going to drop out of the race? Or is it just time to say, hey, bring on the Mamdani. Let the chaos begin. I'll give you the details of the latest polling when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. I gotta say, I had such a great time at the game last night, and I really don't get to the Seahawks games often enough. It was really nice of my mother-in-law to hook us up with some tickets so we could go to the game. Really had a great time at the game, and I forgot how much fun Seahawks games are. I mean, baseball can really learn a lot from the Seahawks. I was telling Mike this last night, is that the Seahawks know how to DJ a game. They know how to keep the energy up. They know how to keep you interested in downtime. And the Brat-Zuka.
Oh, my gosh.
The upgraded Brat-Zuka. Now it's on its own little car thing.
It's a truck, basically. Like, Blitz comes out in, like, this four-wheeled beast, and then it's just, like, all the steam. And, like, I mean, I think everybody in the Hawk's Nest got a hot dog.
Yes.
It's just like...
So for those of you who are like, what's a Brat-Zuka, who may be listening in other parts of the country, the Seahawks launch hot dogs into the audience. I'm sorry, Bratwurst, into the audience. It's a Brat-Zuka. I mean, I know the Mariners rain hot dogs down on people, and that's funny, too. I love the hot dogs from heaven or whatever it is that they call that. But the Brat-Zuka, that's why we have America, my friend, so we can have a Brat-Zuka. If the British were invading us today, we'd shoot hot dogs at us and they'd go, this is great. We love this country. We're joining your side. Nobody would die. That is how you stop wars, with a Brat-Zuka. Because then the other side is just going, give me a hot dog. Give me a hot dog. I want a hot dog. Yeah, this country's amazing.
Well, you had observed that yesterday, Ari. It's like, you know, because like NFL games, Seahawks games in particular, are just really fast-paced with like the quick, fast music stings and the cues and sound effects and things to get the crowd going. And, you know, recently being a previously lapsed Mariners fans that suddenly found himself on the bandwagon, like I'm even watching on TV, I've watched a lot of Mariners games in like the past 3 weeks. And the best I could overhear is a and I'm like, oh, they do that song for the other team also. I thought that was a us thing. Oh no, that's just a boring baseball thing. Boring.
So I'll actually say the Mets.
I like that White Stripe song too as much as anybody else.
Yeah,
but come on,
no more of that. The Mets have actually tried their best to put more screens and use more music cues during games at Citi Field. I noticed the Mariners are trying to up their game as well, but the whole thing is you have to be quiet during at-bats, right? And you're not used to cheering. When the Seahawks are on defense, you're screaming and yelling and shouting and all that kind of stuff. And you know what? We use hand signals in baseball, right? That should be the easy sport to be loud and crazy, right? What do you need to hear in baseball? You're using hand signals everywhere. You know what I'm saying, right? I mean, I know this is what you're worried about in baseball. I know.
Daryl. Children, that's not very nice.
Mom, they're professional athletes. They're used to this sort of thing. It rolls right off their backs.
Yeah, Daryl Strome crying in the outfield. Still the best episode of The Simpsons ever. But yeah, kudos to the Seahawks, because I'm not even that big of a football fan, but those games are fun. Really just a lot of fun. You know, it's not fun what's about to happen in New York. So, a new poll has found that if New York City mayoral race was between just socialist, Marxist, Hamas-loving candidate Zoran Mamdani and former Governor Andrew Cuomo, the independent candidate comes within striking distance of Mamdani. The Gotham polling AARP poll... I'm sorry. AARP, who are you polling? Everybody in them New York nursing homes is dead because of Cuomo. Okay, sorry. I digress. Polling found that if a Republican candidate, Curtis Sliwa, dropped out of the race, 44.6% of New Yorkers would vote for Mamdani, while 40.7% would vote for Cuomo, putting the former New York governor within the margin of error of 4 points. The problem is that Sliwa isn't dropping out. And I got to ask at this point, what do you hope to accomplish? You're not going to win. You have national name recognition. What else do you want to accomplish? Look, I'm agreeing with you. Cuomo sucks. He's terrible. I mean, he's really bad. But Mamdani, way worse. I know some of you around here screaming at your radio right now saying, Ari, it's the same thing with Bruce Harrell. It's the same thing with Katie Wilson. The difference is Cuomo isn't trying to be Mamdani. We know he's terrible. We know he sucks. Bruce Harrell is trying to be Katie Wilson. That's the issue I have there, and I happen to know Bruce Harrell. And I don't ever want my name next to his name. That's just not something we want to do around here. So the question is, do you think Curtis Sliwa will drop out? Do you think it's too late? There was polling back during the summer that said that if Sliwa and Eric Adams had dropped out, then Cuomo had a fighting chance. But the problem is all the energy is on Mamdani's side. All of it. It's all the media can talk about. It's all the media coast to coast can talk about. It's all anybody can talk about. That's it. So the question is he like the parental advisory label on a CD where people just go and vote for it because they think, oh, this is interesting and my parents hate it? Is New York just done for? Was that a nice experiment we saw with New York? What do you think is going to happen? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. It's clear that Curtis Sliwa will not be the next mayor of New York City. It's clear. Question is, can Cuomo actually pull this out? And I just keep saying again, if you guys had found some better candidates, Republican or Democrat, we wouldn't even be in this situation. What'd you guys, raid the nearest homeless shelter or whoever's like just a rejects on both parties, and this is what you come up with? Really? This is it? New York deserves everything it's going to get.
It's not all that different from what we've seen here in Seattle and King County and the state of Washington.
It's not. It's really, really not. In fact, we were doing it before it was cool. We were doing it long before it was cool, and we're used to it.
We've had lame candidates before it was cool. Great.
Let's remember, Bruce Harrell last time, it was him versus Lorena Gonzalez. And once again, I said, what's the difference between them? What is the difference? Oh, I'm always right. I should know never to question myself. There was one time I was wrong. It was a time I thought I was wrong. Only good news to wrap up the show. When we come back, good news headlines put a smile on your face. Heading into this beautiful sunset I'm seeing outside my window right now. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to our good news headlines, I know a lot of you are still sitting Shiva for the Mariners. I know it's a tough loss. I know it's hurting you inside. I know it is. But I want to put this out there just to put things in perspective for a second. I make fun of the Mariners a lot. I'm not going to make fun of the Mariners today. I know that I make fun of the Mariners a lot. But here's the thing. Did any of you realistically at the beginning of the season expect to get this far? I don't think any of you realistically in your heart of hearts did. I know every April you think so. But wasn't it last year people were leaving the stadium chanting, sell the team, spend more money, all that? You never expected to get this far. And I know everybody's ripping the coaches. But a week ago, you guys were talking about how great the coaches were. I get it. Believe me, I get it. I do. I've been here before. Your team isn't a national joke every single season. Not at all. In fact, even Family Guy makes fun of us.
Because so far, Halloween's a bigger letdown than being a Mets fan.
Opening day, and here's the first pitch, and the season's over.
You know that a scoreboard operator for the Mets got fired for playing that on the first day of the season? He actually played that in the stadium and got fired for that. And I know, it hurts. But you know what this actually showed me? You know, one of my favorite movies is Moneyball. I love that movie. It's one of my favorite sports movies. My actual favorite sports movie is Remember the Titans. Moneyball might be a close second. But you know when they're sitting there and they've lost another season at the end of the movie, and then the owner of the Boston Red Sox wants to talk to Brad Pitt's character, Billy Beane, and say, hey, we want to hire you to be the GM because everybody, if they're not tearing down their teams, they're dinosaurs. They're living in the Stone Age because they're going to be watching the Red Sox win the World Series from their couch next year. That's exactly right. What's the Mariners' payroll? Next to nothing. They're one of the teams in baseball that, shockingly, is one of the most profitable per capita, but spends the least amount of money on their team. And look what they were able to do this year. I'm not saying settle for third or fourth best. That's not what I'm saying. But do you realize everybody's looking at this team and going, how the hell did they get this far? And the Mets, with one of the highest payrolls in baseball, the Yankees, the Red Sox, all these big teams didn't even make it to or lost in the first round of the playoffs this year, or lost in the wild card this year. Look at what the Mariners achieved. And you know what? This year I didn't get to make fun of the Mariners in the postseason. I didn't at all. And I always do that. I always do my whole, okay, here we go, a little peek behind the curtain. Mike, I did a whole rant about a rebuilding season comparing the GOP to the Mariners for my primary voters guide. I had to delete all that because as I was updating it for the general election, you can find it up at KVI.com. As I was updating it, I'm like, oh, this didn't age well because the Mariners are literally the champions of the Western Division, and now they're going for the World Series. Oh, this aged like warm milk. That's what this did. I had to clean that whole thing out. I had to eat a lot of crow this year. And you shouldn't be happy because I had to eat a lot of crow. You can make fun of me all you want, and I will deserve every little bit of it that comes my way. But guys, last year the Mets didn't expect to make it as far as they did. They were losing nonstop, and then there was like this magic at the end of the season, and that's what makes baseball so amazing. And that's the best part about baseball.
Exactly. And, I've talked about on the show here, I'm a way lapsed Mariners fan. Like, I wouldn't even consider myself a bandwagon fan, even back in 2022, back when they were in the playoffs the last time. I haven't really been a Mariners fan seriously since like 2001, back with like the All-Star game team, where like that picture where like half of the All-Star squad is the Mariners, that kind of thing. So it's been that long for me. And this has been particularly, I not to be hyperbolic, but kind of magical. And like, I self-identify as a bandwagon fan, but I know there are just as many like me that have had their interest in this rekindled, because it's been a blast these last couple weeks watching these games, and it's like a hit of nostalgia. I'm like, oh, I remember when I used to be into this.
Yeah.
This is kind of cool. And I liked it as I watched more and more games. I'm like, and I start recognizing players and names and faces and hairstyles and
rear ends.
Yeah, thick rumps. I'm like, and it's so funny though, because like I'm like, is Bud ain't that big.
No, it's really not.
Like, it really isn't. I'm like, like that guy on the Blue Jays is way down with the thickness more than Cal Raleigh is, but that's just me. But anyway, it's just what I would like to think the takeaway here is for Laps fans like myself, they're back on the bandwagon. Let's stick around through next year, see what happens.
Exactly. And also, as they say in Moneyball, how can you not be romantic about baseball? How can you not be romantic about baseball? That's why I love this sport. And I loved it even when the Mariners were playing, guys. I'm so sorry about the loss. But you know what? This is the first time I've ever said this with confidence. I've lived here for 22 years. Wait till next season. And I've never said that about the Mariners before in my life. That's going to do it for us today, my friends, but fear not. We will be back tomorrow with more insane stories and more exciting guests. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.